Yeah, so anybody like to share anything? We'll have a class by Sugandha. Before that, we will see if anybody like to say anything. Okay, so we can hear from Sugandha.
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll share my screen. Okay. Um, are you able to see my screen?
No.
No?
Yes, Mata.
How come I'm not able to see? Maybe you want
I
to
think
share and share again.
Okay, Prabhuji. Okay. Okay, Prabhuji, I'm sharing. Are you able to see now?
Uh, no. Anybody else can see?
no,
We
not
can
me.
see.
Yes, Prabhu, we can see.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so you can go ahead then. There's some issue with my. I think somebody else is sharing their screen. That's why I'm not able to see. Okay, 1 minute. Maybe I'll
I
just
think
sign out and
so.
come back in. Let me sign out and come back in.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason. Let me share my screen and see if that makes sense. Okay, now I can see the screen. It came.
Okay, I stopped sharing, so I'll start sharing again. Okay.
Yeah,
Do
now.
you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. All right, so we were discussing Canto 6, Chapter 1, and we read previously that Parikshit Maharaj, he heard about people suffering in hellish planets due to their sinful activities, and he asked Shukdev Goswami this question: tell me how human beings may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions. So now Shukdev Goswami is responding. We'll read few verses and then we'll read a purport from verse 15. So Shukdev Goswami replied, my dear king, if before one's next death, whatever impious acts one has performed in this life with his mind, words, and body are not counteracted through proper atonement, according to the direct description of the Manu Samhita and other Dharma Shastras, one will certainly enter the hellish planets after death and undergo terrible suffering, as I have previously described to you. Therefore, before one's next death comes, as long as one's body is strong enough, one should quickly adopt the process of atonement according to Shastra. Otherwise, one's time will be lost and the reactions of his sins will increase. As an expert physician diagnoses and treats a disease according to its gravity, one should undergo atonement according to the severity of one's sins. Maharaj Parikshit said, one may know that sinful activity is injurious for him because he actually sees that a criminal is punished by the government and rebuked by people in general, and because he hears from scriptures and learned scholars that one is thrown into hellish conditions in the next life for committing sinful acts. Nevertheless, in spite of such knowledge, one is forced to commit sins again and again, even after performing acts of atonement. Therefore, what is the value of such atonement? Sometimes one who is very alert so as not to commit sinful acts is victimized by sinful life again. I therefore consider this process of repeated sinning and atoning to be useless. It is like the bathing of an elephant. For an elephant cleanses itself by taking a full bath, but then throws dust over its head and body, and as soon as it returns to the land. Shukdev Goswami, the son of Vedvyas, answered, my dear king, since acts meant to neutralize impious actions are also fruitive, they will not release one from the tendency to act fruitively. Persons who subject themselves to the rules and regulations of atonement are not at all intelligent. Indeed, they are in the mode of darkness. Unless one is freed from the mode of ignorance, trying to counteract one action through another is useless, because this will not uproot one's desires. Thus, even though one may superficially seem pious, he will undoubtedly be prone to act impiously. Therefore, real atonement is enlightenment in perfect knowledge, Vedanta, by which one understands the supreme absolute truth. My dear king, if a diseased person eats the pure, uncontaminated food prescribed by a physician, he is gradually cured and the infection of disease can no longer touch him. Similarly, if one follows the regulative principles of knowledge, he gradually progresses towards liberation from material contamination. To concentrate the mind, one must observe a life of celibacy and not fall down. One must undergo austerity of voluntarily giving up sense enjoyment. One must then control the mind and senses, give charity, be truthful, clean, and non violent, follow the regulative principles, and regularly chant the holy name of the Lord. Thus, a sober and faithful person who knows the religious principles is temporarily purified of all sins, performed with his body, mind, and words. These sins are like dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree, which may be burned by fire, although their roots remain to grow again at the first opportunity. So, just giving the main points Prabhupada mentioned in the purports of the verses that we read. Prabhupada mentioned that Shukdev Goswami did not speak about the strength of Bhakti Yoga first. So, Shukdev Goswami, he starts describing the path of Karma Kand, starting from this verse. So, Shukdev Goswami is saying that impious activities performed by one's body, mind, and words, they have to be counteracted. Otherwise, one will have to suffer in hell. And this process of counteracting the sins, it's known as prayashchitta or atonement. Now, this verse says that when sins are also performed when we have sinful thoughts in our mind. But in a lecture that I was hearing, Prabhupada mentioned that there is a concession in this age of Kali Yuga that we don't get reactions of having sinful thoughts in the mind. Here, I'm going to read part of the lecture. So Prabhupada is saying, we are committing sinful acts even by thinking, even by thinking. If I think that I shall kill that man, this is mental activity. Still it's sinful. If I unnecessarily chastise you by words, you rascal, this and that is also kind of sinful activity. And if I commit by action, that is sure. The concession for this age is when we think of any sinful activities, it does not affect us. But when we actually suppose I'm thinking of killing you, this thinking of killing you is also sinful, but unless I kill you, the sin is not, I mean to say, prominent. In this age, that is a concession. But we are actually thinking, feeling, and willing and acting so many sinful activities that we don't know. So even though we don't get reaction to sinful thoughts going on in our mind, however, all sins start in the mind only. It starts with contemplation. And then attachment develops, lust develops. And when lust is not satisfied, becomes anger, like we have this verse in Bhagavad Gita. Dhyato vishyan pumsa sangaste sopajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho abhijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vipramaha smriti bhramsad buddhi nashad pranashyati. So we should catch our mind early on when it's at the stage of contemplating some sinful activity. Also, nature's law is very strict. There is no escape from suffering without proper atonement. Um, we see people are trying to minimize their suffering by trying so many different ways. First of all, people don't know the real cause of their suffering. And then they're just trying to escape it. But if someone performs a sinful act, say someone kills someone, but by hook or crook he escapes the punishment from the police, but there is no escape from the law of God. He will be punished for it, either in this life or next life. And he might not remember what he has done in his previous life, that why am I suffering in this life? But we know that there is a reason for that suffering. So in Tatyanukampam Susamikshamano verse in the purport, Prabhupada mentioned, the purpose of the entire creation of God is to rectify the living entity's tendency to enjoy without the Lord, and therefore the particular punishment given for a sinful activity is specifically designed to curtail the mentality that produced that activity. So, from the suffering that we get, we can understand what type of sinful activity we must have performed in our previous life. Radhanath Swami, in one lecture, he was talking about how we should understand or react to the suffering that we get in this life. So, Radhanath Swami is saying, so whatever suffering comes upon us and whoever is doing it, they are just instruments of our own karma. We are to be blamed. Someone has to do this to us. We have to go through it. So we could thank them. I have to go through this. I have done it myself. You're just the postman delivering my own karma to me. So thank you. So he's telling an example. Suppose if a postman comes and knocks on your door and shows you your mail and gets your signature, you open it up and it's an overdue bill of $1 million. Just a second, let me mute. It's an overdue bill of $1 million that you owe to the bank. If you do not pay, then they will come and take away your house, car, etc. So now what? Do your eyes become red? And do you pick up the nearest thing or nearest weapon and attack the postman? No. You took out the loan and you did not pay the loan, so it's your fault. It's not the postman's fault. So, if others are giving us suffering, they're just an instrument of our own karma. It's the law of nature. For every action, there is equal and opposite reaction. And the suffering that comes to us, it counteracts the sinful reaction. So, here the first Shukdev Goswami talked about the path of karmakand, fruitive activities like yagna, dan, and pious activities. But to this, Maharaj Parikshit, he responds that this method of atonement is just like bathing of an elephant. The elephant enters into a lake and it takes a very nice bath, but as soon as it comes to the shore, it puts dust all over itself. So, similarly, a person might know that it's what would be the implication of performing a sinful activity. He sees that others are being punished, and he hears from the scriptures what happens to someone who commits a sinful activity, um, and he actually suffers from it, but still he continues to commit the same sinful activity again and again. So Parikshit Maharaj says that this method of atonement is useless. Prabhupada also gives an example in Nectar of Devotion. So Prabhupada says that, for example, a person suffering from venereal disease on account of excessive indulgence in sex life has to undergo some severe pain in medical treatment, and he is then cured for the time being. But because he has not been able to remove the sex desire from his heart, he must again indulge in the same thing and become a victim of the same disease. So, medical treatment may give temporary relief from the distress of such venereal disease, but unless one is trained to understand that sex life is abominable, it is impossible to be saved from such repeated distress. Similarly, the ritualistic performances, charity, austerity, they are recommended in the Vedas, may temporarily stop one from acting in sinful ways, but as long as the heart is not clear, one will have to repeat sinful activities again and again. So then Shukdev Goswami is happy to hear this response from Parikshit Maharaj that Karma Kand atonement is useless. So then Shukdev Goswami then further he prescribes the path of Gyan Kand. He's saying that real atonement is getting knowledge. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that he's mentioning this knowledge refers to speculative knowledge, which Gyanis say like Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. The world is false. The path of Neti Neti, no to everything, restraining your senses, trying to become one with Brahman, to become impersonalist. So this platform of Gyan or speculative knowledge, it is better than the platform of Karmakand, But the difficulty in this platform of Gyan is that one thinks that he has become liberated, and he has become Narayana, he has become Bhagwan. And we know this verse we have read in Srimad Bhagavatam. Ye anyarvindaksha vimukta mani nastvayasta bhavad avishuddha buddhaye aroha krishnena parampadam tatha patante ado anad anadrata yusmad anagrahe. So, this verse is saying that non devotees, these jnanis and karmis, they might accept severe austerities and penances and consider themselves liberated, but they fall down from their position because they don't have regard of the lotus feet of the Lord. So, jnanis, they also fall down and they again commit sinful activities. So, then after that, Shukdev Goswami prescribes a path of austerity and celibacy in this verse. Um, but he says that even this path is like um, it gives temporary relief. So he says that the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree, they may be burned by fire, although the roots remain to grow. So the example is given, these plants, when there's a fire, they are burnt from outside, but the root remains in the earth. So as soon as there is favorable condition, there is some rain, again they come out. So this tapasya, austerity and celibacy, one can superficially get out of these sinful reactions, but because the roots remain, again these activities come out. And we have several examples in shastras where someone was trying to follow this path of gyan and yoga and tapasya, but they easily fell down from their position. Example is Vishwamitra Muni. When he heard the ankle bells of Menaka when he was meditating, he got agitated and then he begot a child with her. And the other example is that of Shobhari Muni. He also got agitated when he saw fishes mating when he was meditating underwater in Yamuna. And then he married 50 daughters of King Mandhata. So then, after rejecting these parts of Karm Kand, Gyan Kand, and Tapasya parts, Shukdev Goswami, he is finally disclosing the best solution to avoid repeated suffering, the actual path of atonement, real atonement. So we'll read this verse. It's a famous verse. Does someone want to read the verse in the purport?
Yeah, I can read.
Sure.
केचित् केवलया भक्त्या वासुदेव परायणः परायणः अगम धुन्वन्ति कार्त्स्नेन निहारम इव भास्करः. Only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. So, purport. In the previous verse, Shukdev Goswami gave the example that the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree may be completely burned to ashes by a fire. Although the creepers may sprout again because the root is still in the ground. Similarly, because the root of sinful desire is not destroyed in the heart of a person who is cultivating knowledge, but who has no taste for devotional service, there is a possibility that his sinful desires will reappear, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14:4. Shreya Shritim Shreya Sritim Bhaktim Udasyate Vibho Lishyanti Ye Kevala Bodha Labdaye. Speculators who undergo great labor to gain a meticulous understanding of the material world by distinguishing between sinful and pious activities, but who are not situated in devotional service, are prone to material activities. They may fall down and become implicated in fruitive activities. If one becomes attached to devotional service, however, his desires for material enjoyment are automatically vanquished without separate endeavor. Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Virakti Anyatra Cha. If one is advanced in Krishna consciousness, material activities, both sinful and pious, automatically become distasteful to him. That is the test of Krishna consciousness. Both the pious and impious activities are actually due to ignorance, because a living entity, as an eternal servant of Krishna, has no need to act for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, as soon as one is reclaimed to the platform of devotional service, he relinquishes his attachment for pious and impious activities and is interested only in what will satisfy Krishna. This process of bhakti, devotional service to Krishna, Vasudeva Parayana, relieves one from the reactions of all activities. Since Maharaj Parikshit was a great devotee, the answers of his guru Shukdev Goswami concerning Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda could not satisfy him. Therefore, Shukdev Goswami, knowing very well the heart of his disciple, explained the transcendental bliss of devotional service. The word Kechit, which is used in this verse, means a few people, but not all. Not everyone can become Krishna conscious. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita 7.3, Manushyanam sahasreshu kashid yatati siddhaye yatataamapi siddhanam kashin mam veti tatvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Practically, no one understands Krishna as he is. For Krishna cannot be understood through pious activities or attainment of the most elevated speculative knowledge. Actually, the highest knowledge consists of understanding Krishna. Unintelligent men who do not understand Krishna are grossly puffed up, thinking that they are liberated or have themselves become Krishna or Narayan. This is ignorance. To indicate the purity of bhakti, devotional service, Srila Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11 Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanu Sheelanam Bhaktiruttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami further explains that bhakti is kleshagni shubhada, which means if one takes to devotional service, all kinds of unnecessary labor and material distress cease entirely and one achieves all good fortune. Bhakti is so powerful that it is also said to be moksha lakuta krit. In other words, it minimizes the importance of liberation. Non-devotees must undergo material hardships because they are prone to commit sinful fruitive activities. The desire to commit sinful actions continue in their hearts due to ignorance. These sinful actions are divided into three categories: Pataka, Mahapataka, and Atipataka, and also into two divisions: Prarabdha and Aprarabdha. Prarabdha refers to sinful reactions from which one is suffering at the present, and Aprarabdha refers to sources of potential suffering. When the seeds, bija, of sinful reactions have not yet fructified, the reactions are called aprarabdha. These seeds of sinful action are unseen, but they are unlimited, and no one can trace when they were first planted. Because of prarabdha, sinful reactions that have already fructified, one is seen to have taken birth in a low family or to be suffering from other miseries. When one takes to devotional service, however, all the phases of sinful life, including prarabdha, aprarabdha, and bija, are vanquished. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11:14-19, Lord Krishna tells Uddhav, Yathagni susamriddharchi karoti edhanshi basmasat tatha madvishaya bhaktir uddhavainamshi kritsna saha. My dear Uddhav, devotional service in relation with me is like a blazing fire that can burn to ashes all the fuel of sinful activities supplied to it. How devotional service vanquishes the reaction of sinful life is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.33.6 in a verse spoken during Lord Kapila Dev's instruction to his mother Devahuti. Devahuti said, Yan namadhya shravananu kirtanad yat pravanad yat smaranad api kvachit स्वादोपि सद्य savannaya kalpate kuta punaste bhagavan nudarshanat. My dear Lord, if even a person born in family of dog eaters hears and repeats the chanting of your glories, offers respects to you, and remembers you, he is immediately greater than a Brahmana and is therefore eligible to perform sacrifices. Therefore, what is to be said of one who has seen you directly? In the Padma Puran, there is a statement that persons whose hearts are always attached to the devotional service of Lord Vishnu are immediately released from all reactions of sinful life. These reactions generally exist in four phases. Some of them are ready to produce results immediately. Some are in the form of seeds, some are unmanifested, and some are current. All such reactions are immediately nullified by devotional service. When devotional service is present in one's heart, desires to perform sinful activities have no place there. Sinful life is due to ignorance, which means forgetfulness of one's constitutional position as an eternal servant of God. But when one is fully Krishna conscious, he realizes that he is God's eternal servant. In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami